Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan Wiegand, and with me today, as always, is Logan Stump.
Jordan, you're looking sharp today, man. You're
Am
looking
I?
more spry. You look like you got more hair. I wish I could do that.
No,
Pull that
I've
off.
actually been bumming it today. Work from
Oh,
home, so just been in my pajamas the whole
oh.
day. Just came
Well,
upstairs to record this.
the lighting is wonderful. Like you look
Thank
at.
you.
Wait, you didn't work today, did you?
I did.
Oh, I thought you didn't
I
work.
worked from home. Yeah,
I thought maybe you had Friday, Monday off.
I had Friday off.
Mm. Would you say it was a good Friday?
Technically, yes. I'm off this Friday too, which will also be another good Friday. So I'm excited for that.
How'd you pull that off?
Just request off.
Look at you.
Joy has like a procedure that she's getting done, so I have to
Oh,
drive
that's
her
right.
there. So I have to drive her there and drive her back. So I am on husband duty that whole day.
Sounds like an Uber, a Jordan Uber, an Uber
You know
Jordan.
what? She probably could have just called an Uber.
Could you imagine picking somebody up from a procedure if they were all drugged
They're all
out?
like high.
Oh man.
But we're not here to talk about that thing. We're here to talk about the MLS season as it continues to roll on, as St. Louis has now lost 2 straight games. Who would have thunk that? We asked last week what would happen first. Seattle continuing to dominate at home or St. Louis's great away streak. Well, St. Louis's away streak broke first. Cincinnati still dominating in the top of the East. By dominating, I mean a point. But they're rolling. They are rolling. They have no losses, and they are one of 2 undefeated teams left in MLS, the other one being LAFC. Of course, we have LAFC, who continues to cruise as we're talking about them. Galaxy lose to the Dynamo as Dynamo continue their streak at home. And they don't just lose to Dynamo, they get 3-0 loss to Houston. So not great in the side of LA. But lots to talk about here, lots to get into with the MLS. He's also had some CONCACAF Champions League that we'll discuss as well. Yeah. Anything, Logan, that has kind of stood out to you before we dive into the standings and such?
I mean, I think just kind of how legit Cincinnati are, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But just like the broad topics, I think Cincinnati being a contender for Supporter Shield and MLS Cup, I think they're a legit contender, especially coming out of the East. That looks a little bit shaky, to say the least. I don't think there's many contenders right now in the Eastern Conference, Jordan, which that'll be a lot of fun to kind of talk about. I mean, all these teams look pretty poor, and it doesn't help that the Union are playing in CONCACAF Champions League and actually performing, but for to their standard of performing. But and then I think the other thing that kind of sticks out to me, obviously, is just the LA Galaxy. How abysmal they've just been since this has just kind of come unraveled for them. And we'll talk a little bit about it because they had some disciplinary issues. They've got 2 red cards in their match that they're going to head into El Trafico with. But I think just that there's a lot of surprises in this league this year, and I think our predictions are going to go up in flames if they already haven't, because they just I don't think they're accurate at all in any way, shape, or form. So no, it's I think the only standard, the gold standard, is the gold in LAFC. So lots to cover.
Yeah, so let's just talk about the standings first, and then we can kind of jump into games after the fact. But just as a refresher for everyone, how the Eastern Conference currently shakes out is Cincinnati in first place with 17 points. New England in second with 16 points. Atlanta in third with 14. And Columbus in fourth with 13. I'd say that's probably the class of the league so far. Below them, you have Nashville with 11 points. And by the league, I mean Eastern Conference. Chicago with 9 points. NYCFC in 7th with 9 points. Orlando with 8 points. Toronto in 9th with 8 points. For the first time in the season, Philadelphia drops spots there in 10th with 7 points. Red Bulls in 11th with 7 points. Miami, who started off the season pretty well with 6 points, are now at the point of still only having 6 points. They're in 12th place. DC in 13th with 5 points. Charlotte in 14th with 5 points. And Montreal in 15th with 3 points. And of course, they've given up 16 goals. So I guess let's focus on the East, right? Let's do that. Let's kind of break it up this way. I just read you the table for the East. We'll talk about the Eastern Conference teams. If they happen to play a Western Conference team, we'll save them for last as we transition to the West. So, I guess let's jump into Cincy, Philadelphia. This is one that the Philly fans were thinking, Cincy's their little brother, right? That they had Pat Noonan, they had Chris Albright, they left to go to Cincinnati. Cincinnati has been on a really good streak this season. Philly has been playing pretty abysmal, even at home. Now, this was in Cincinnati, so maybe an improvement from last year, where I think this is where they lost 3-1 or 3-0 Philly. So to only lose 1-0, and it was a penalty kick that Luciano Acosta took. Kind of a weird situation, too, where the goal went in, and then they called it back to give the penalty. And the reasoning for that, as the league came out and said, was because apparently the ref had pointed to the penalty spot before the rebound when the player hit the ball into the back of the net. So since he would have felt really robbed if Andre Blake comes up with a big save here, I think, because if I'm a ref, which I'm not, but if I was, I like to think I'm one of those that is going to let play go a bit as I wait to see the outcome. You can call the penalty once the ball's out of play, too. So that's kind of how I would like to handle the situation. But the league kind of saved itself. The refs kind of saved themselves here from Acosta converting the penalty, or else this would have been really uh, on Twitter, like Cincinnati got screwed. I think.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I guess I didn't really know the rule until I saw just a replay of it.
Yeah, it makes sense. He called the penalty,
Yeah.
so you're thinking if a player on the pitch stopped because he heard the whistle, that maybe the goal doesn't go in. But what I would like to see from refs is just wait a bit longer before you call the penalty, play on, and then call. You don't have to blow it right away. Is my concern with the refs. This was by Ted Uncle, by the way, who was the ref of this match. Yeah, I mean, Union sat out there. They put Quinn Sullivan and Donovan up top. They were really rotating their squad because 1-0 lead in the CONCACAF Champions League as they get ready to head to Atlas. So, that takes precedence, but it's just kind of, I guess if they don't get the job done in Mexico now with a lead, it can be a problem of how fast can they turn it on in the league, right? You can't just turn it on. I feel like, it's when you've been playing bad, it's going to be tough to just shake it off and be like, well, CONCACAF Champions League is done, so now we can turn it on. It's really hard to do that. Now, they're only 1 point out of a playoff spot, so I think you definitely prioritize the CONCACAF Champions League. But as a Union fan, it's frustrating because it seems like we haven't seen this team really turn it on at all this season. Even the game against Atlas, they didn't look great. They did have a lot of the chances. It took a penalty for them to be able to convert it. So I'm thinking they're going to go down to Atlas and lose, and then they're going to have to try to turn it on. We're in April, right? We take the break for Leagues Cup in July. So they're going to have like this small window of a couple games before we have to before we have to take a break for Leagues Cup for a month and then come back and get. So it's going to be kind of a hard start and stop for some of these teams. And for the Union, when you want to get some consistency and want to get something going, Leagues Cup might come at either a good time or a really bad time. If you continue playing bad, Leagues Cup is going to come at a good time. But if you're Cincy riding high or you're Seattle riding high and you're still riding high going to Leagues Cup, that might, take some of the air out of your sails.
Yeah, I mean it's so hard to compete in a competition where you're trying to be the best on this continent. So it's really just difficult, I think, for this team to just kind of figure that out and how to rotate players, how to get people rest, how to also be competitive in the league. They got a lot of good young players, but again, we've seen it time and time again. Young players, while can be good in this league, I think if you use one at least, and maybe as a reserve role, but to have to be able to use a bunch of them at the same time. And then I think Leon Flock is not playing as well as he had been. I think a lot of Union players just haven't performed to the kind of standard that we're used to them and seeing them perform. I mean, Ura's not been the same that he kind of had last year. Gazdag is, of course, I think going to take a step back off of what he did last year, just because I think it was kind of like a Hani Mukhtar situation, or kind of like what you saw with Sebastian Jerussi too. Is just that
you sure about players, that? You said, of course, you
hey,
chose him as the MVP.
Of course, yeah, but of course he was going to be the MVP. So I think you saw some of it coming, but especially because I think if you're a Union fan, you see an aging Ali Bedoya. You assume that Andre Blake's just going to be healthy for the rest of the season, and they better hope he is, just because I think Joe Bendick, while serviceable, can't really kind of lock down that position as a top goalkeeper. So I think there's a lot of concern as far as the Unions, in the league, just because of all the breaks that are coming up. It's a rocky bit, but I mean, look at Seattle last year, finished 11th in the Western Conference, but was the best team on this side of the world. So again, I think it was interesting just because, or it's interesting just to look at it because it's such a unique situation that we oftentimes find ourselves in. But another thing that's really strange to me, though, Jordan, is like the European teams really put emphasis on the Champions League as well. But I think because their rosters are a little deeper, the ones that are so competitive in those leagues, I think it's a little bit easier for them to kind of shore that up. And play like a second team, kind of like City or Chelsea or Liverpool have. Bayern Munich and them kind of have a 15 roster or 15 deep roster that can just play as good as quality as the first team. So I mean, it's interesting, but I would say that the scale for the Union on, I guess, just the scale of worry and scale of panic, I would say it's pretty high. If they go down to Atlas and lose, now they've got so much ground to make up in this playoff situation. I think they can do it in the East because it sucks, but yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on how the Union
I saw somebody post, if they go to Atlas and lose, can't win the next two games, that's kind of panic time, right? Because at that point, you're not going to have you're not going to have the fixture congestion after you're done CCL. So it's like, okay, why aren't we able to turn it on now? Why aren't we able to get it going? And that's going to be probably a very, frustrating thing. Now on Cincinnati side, they're rolling. They're at no losses. They play very well at home, all wins. They have 1 win and 2 draws away from home. So, they're deservedly at the top of the table right now. And this is, they kind of have a window here because we expect maybe Brenner or somebody might be leaving either in the summer or after the season. So they kind of have this window here of, all right, let's try to get some wins and try to get some maybe a trophy or something.
Yeah, they found ways to just and they found ways to grind out wins. They haven't looked like world beaters, but I think they could, especially if Vasquez and Brenner do get started. They haven't even played well this season, so it's a
Well, we
matter of
talk
like when
about
they
how tough the West is, right? But like they're actually top of the East and they're top of the supporter shield with by 1 point. Seattle
right.
is right there with 16 points. Now LAFC has a game in hand, so they can tie Cincy on the supporter shield. But who would have thought, if we're looking 7 weeks in here, that Cincinnati is top of the supporter shield standings?
Yeah, I mean, you just look at their team; they've shored up some of their defensive issues that they've had in the past. Just kind of having that solidified back line that they have. They play a lot better in the midfield too. And Lucho Acosta is just a game changer. He went down. I didn't know this. He went down, and you kind of saw it in the game. And he scores a penalty that takes it over the Union 1-0. But he actually fell down. He was actually seen leaving in a sling. Had some shoulder issues that Cincinnati announced after the match. So it sounds like he's going to miss a week or two here coming up. And I mean, you kind of look at a talisman in this league, and you think of players that a team would struggle without, and you think of teams like the Revs, you think of teams like Nashville, you think of a team like Toronto with Bernadeschi. I think they're kind of in the same boat right now. I think if Lucho Acosta has to miss, but I think they're a little bit more satisfied to kind of lean on Moreno and really kind of figure out how to play without Lucho, because they've won without Lucho in this season as he's kind of dealt with injury some. But again, I think with Lucho Acosta playing at MVP level, that it takes this team to a whole different kind of position that they're not used to quite being in. But again, do you think Pat Noonan, early coach of the year candidate? Obviously, I think a favorite maybe.
I would say, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Pat Noonan is an option for early candidate
Could you throw
for coach
Schmetzer
of
in
the
there?
year. I think
Like,
so here's your three, and this is going to sound dumb. All right, your three are Pat Noonan, Smetzer, and Bradley Carnell of St. Louis. Those are your top three. And then depending what LAFC does. And of course, Carnell is going to depend on if St. Louis continue, right? They've now lost 2 in a row. Stock could start falling if if they continue to lose games. But if they continue, I would say if St. Louis finishes in like the top 4 of the West, it's conceivable that Carnell wins it. First year team coming in here, boom. It really depends on how we want to rank coaches, right? Like Curtin won it last year when really I feel like Cherundolo really first year coach with LAFC. Maybe he got dinged a bit because he was coaching at seems to be like all stars that they didn't want to vote for. Like
right.
it's kind of tough on how we're going to rank them, because you would almost think that manager of the year should be whatever team wins the supporter shield. That's not how it always works, right? But like I think Curtin won it when Arena won the supporter shield, right?
Yeah, and because
Because
I think it just
Curtin's 2 years in a row.
yeah, because I think what happens is they like the NCAA would, like all of them would, NBA. They take into consideration like where they came from and now where they are, and I
Mm-hmm.
think you kind of look at Cincinnati, you look at this quick charge forward underneath Noonan and Albright, and I think that's a massive thing for them. Their front office seems to have really taken what the Union have done in Philadelphia and kind of duplicated that, replicated that, and even might have made a better version of it. So I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I
I
think
hope.
I was just
Go
gonna
ahead.
say if it finishes like this, like if let's say the table finishes as it is today, I would say it definitely goes to Noonan because, like you said, kind of the history of where they've been, and you also look at Seattle and LA as the other two teams that probably have front runners, and they both are stacked, right? So I feel like you could, if you're a voter, you could conceivably say like, well, I almost like the Ted Lasso thing when they ask if he's coach of the year, and they're like, "What, for writing Zava in the starting line?" Like,
Yeah.
like there is
Yeah.
a part of that with Seattle and with LAFC that since he doesn't have. Um, since he has kind of taken on a union trajectory of getting
Yeah.
better, kind of like
100%. Yep.
each time. So if they do finish very high in the East and they finish first, you're like, okay, this is one of those building blocks of we're getting further each time. Um, so that's that's something to look out for. Is I think they might reward that more than Seattle's back after last year, and even last year you're like, well, they won CCL, right? So they still had a successful season after missing a playoffs. All right, I guess let's talk some other teams here. So New England is conceivably in that situation. They had a bad year last year. They're back up. They beat Montreal 4-0. Seems like everybody can do that but the Union. But Montreal has only scored 3 goals and they've given up what did I say, like 16? I mean, really, Logan, they're on pace. I talked about this last week with you, but I really feel like they're on pace to blow DC's record out of the water.
Yeah, no, and they, I mean, watching their match play out, I mean, Montreal looked abysmal. I thought Montreal played really poorly defensively, and I think with Montreal too, it's like it's almost like they now have lost interest, and they really don't seem to be playing well under Hernan Losada. I think that seat's going to get real warm real quick in Montreal because they were quick to firing from DC. I can't imagine what it'll look like, especially with just how I don't know.
I
I
will
feel
say
like
it's a
Montreal
little
is
unfair to Lasada. I mean,
a little bit, yeah.
they lose Nancy, right? Who goes over to Columbus, doing well there. They lose Mihalovic. They lose Torres, and they didn't bring in anyone. And
That's
it's
true.
like,
Yeah.
who do they have? Kyoto? Like, that's it, right? Like, that's tough. And I can't put it all on Losada. I have to look at the general management and ownership and be like, okay, you rebranded again, huzzah. Where is now the money to put into the team so you can actually turn this around? You sold Mihalovic. You sold some of these players that were doing so well. You so much so that Nancy was like, you know what? I gotta leave this place to go to Columbus because it's probably better there. And they've backed him. Columbus does have good ownership. They back their managers. They let them spend money. We saw it even under Porter. And then it's just like completely devastated Montreal. They are just floundering away. I will put also some of this on the schedule, by the way, because Montreal has still only played 1 game at home. I don't know what the hell that's about. They played 5 games on the road. They've lost all 5 of those. And that's really where they're struggling. At home, they beat the Union, right? Which may not be a big feat, but we can't even judge it properly because we've only seen 1 home game from them.
Yeah, they haven't scored away from home. They scored those 3 goals that they have this season against the Union at home in a match that I thought the Union just played pretty poorly. So it's interesting. Yeah, that's true. That helps. But I think with Montreal, you're right, Jordan. I think they lose some key pieces, and I think they've not really been able to kind of put those together. I think you see it with Columbus too, right? You see with how good they are, how good at Wilfred Nancy is at his job to be able to get young players to play at the top levels that they are. He's got Christian Ramirez playing well. Chucho, of course, is going to be top notch over in Columbus. Matan's playing well for them, and he's kind of been a slow burn over the last couple of years. So it's a huge loss, I think, in that sense. Where I think even some of these glaring mistakes and issues that I think Montreal have, I think are kind of displacement if you've got Wilfred Nancy there. And I think maybe last year that was a thing. Maybe Montreal, they scattered all the way up to what was the second in the Eastern Conference, and they played well under Wilfred Nancy, but I think he kind of made this team into something that maybe they weren't quite, but he had him playing so confidently and so well because I think Wilfred Nancy is one of the best coaches in this league. So I think,
a testament to Nancy. But I also, you kind of look at Hernan Losada, who had kind of a decent start, like not horrible with DC United, who were awful that year. And he's let go quickly. And it seems like if the situation is going to sour quickly, it's going to be with him because of how quickly it's soured in DC. Because I feel like he's a hothead, or he's just got issues with being able to kind of work with people. So the minute this is going south, and it's quickly gone south, 16 goals given up in just 6 matches. They've not played as many games as other people. They still have a game to go in hand. So yeah, no, this is brutal to watch. They've just been very poor.
And on the New England side of it, of course, Gustavo Bo has 2 goals. Carlos Gil has 2 goals on the season, 3 assists. So he's kind of getting back into gear. Bobby Wood has 2 goals since he moved over there. So things are kind of clicking for New England. Bobby Wood scoring again this match. Carlos Gil scored this match as well. Out of the 4 goals, 2 of them, 1 each, go to Carlos Gil and to Bobby Wood. So New England kind of back on track here, Logan.
Are you buying them?
Disappointing season. I am.
Are you buying?
I am.
Are you?
Okay. I think they've. I think they worked out their. The issues from last year. They kind of. This is kind of common MLS where you kind of have this team just like have a good season and then just completely fall apart the next season, and then next season we're right back in it again. Like it's kind of odd that way.
So they've gotten results against Charlotte, the Houston Dynamo, Nashville, DC United, NYCFC, and Montreal. The only reason I asked that is just because those are not good teams that they've beaten.
2 of those teams are in playoff spots.
Yeah, but they beat Nashville at home. Who else? NYCFC, I'm assuming, is in the playoff spot.
Yeah.
Who, they've looked decent. I think that's a good result. But I don't put too much stock in the fact that they're going to. I don't think they're going to finish top 4 in the East. I think those are kind of.
No, they may not do that. I just think that they'll probably. I don't expect them to finish 8th or 9th. Like I think they would have made the playoffs in a system like last year, even this year. Is kind of depends on how much they look. Here's the thing: you're reading off those names, and it's like, okay, they should beat those teams. So good job. And now we're really going to see the test when we get to see them go up against teams like Cincy or Atlanta, right? And
they've
Columbus.
Got the Crew next.
Yeah. So that'll be a big one.
Yeah, got the Crew next. Then they do play Cincinnati after they host Sporting Kansas City, but that's 2 home games in a row. I buy any fact that like Carlos Gil is one of the best players in this league. So if he starts to have that MVP kind of caliber season, then yeah, I think that this team sticks around in the top 4. But I'm looking at the rest of the Eastern Conference, and I think there's still some teams that we're still kind of having questions about. Nashville obviously is a big question mark. Can they defend well enough? Because they're surely not going to score. I think we've pretty much come to that conclusion. That's kind of been their existence, is they've just not been able to score unless Tony Mukhtar is doing it. So I think that's it. I think if the Union can figure it out, is Orlando City going to figure it out and kind of make that charge towards the top 4? The Fire look good. I know that's shocking to say, especially after how much you torched them in the beginning of the season. The Red Bull haven't quite figured it out, but I think they do too.
Preseason, all right? It was preseason.
Oh, sorry, yeah, that's what it was.
Them,
right. But Jordan I think Jordan has all their kits now. Oh, what was that? That was real quick. Jordan has all their kits now. He's gone and bought all of his Chicago Fire gear. It's your Chicago Fire, Jordan.
Yes, I have a Chicago Fire kit on right at this moment, and over top of it is a Chicago Cubs jersey. All right.
Right.
I'm rocking that with my Bears hat.
Yes, you just can't see it because of green Chicago. Screen.
Yeah. Let's go, Justin Fields. Let's talk. Let's not talk Chicago right now. Let's talk Atlanta. They're sitting 3rd. They played NYCFC. Atlanta gets a red card 62 minutes in, and they still take the lead in 8 minutes with Giakoumakis scoring again. And then Pereira equalized for NYCFC in the 72nd minute. So all the action kind of happening in 10 minutes from the 62nd to the 72nd minute. And then that was it. But NYCFC have kind of rebounded a bit from where they were and what we thought they would be. But Atlanta is really the team that kind of surprised us. And now Giakoumakis is starting to score. They sit 14 points. They've played 7 games. They're averaging 2 points per game. They're the last team in the East that are averaging at least 2 points per game. The other two, of course, New England and Cincinnati, averaging more than that. And there's only 3 teams in the West that are averaging that. So there's only 6 teams right now that are averaging 2 points per game or more. And the lowest one of those is Atlanta. It seems like they're kind of getting everything rocking. They did not score. They did not shoot as much as NYCFC. They did not have more shots on goal than NYCFC. They did not have more possession than NYCFC. But they go on the road. They get a man down. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think a lot of people too
on a baseball field.
That's true. They didn't hit any home runs, which is kind of a miracle, but because everybody does in that park. I would say that
the Yankees were hitting them against the Orioles. It's fine.
Well, that's not hard to do. I think you and I might have a chance. But I would say that with the 5 stripes, Jordan, I think the biggest thing for me is that people look at their defense and go, "Oh, well, they've allowed 10 goals." Well, those 6 goals were allowed against the Crew, and they were it was one of those matches where they gave up 6 goals just because it was like once you get past 3 or 4, it's like, all right, well, and they had most of their players missing, and so it's like it's a matter of those 6 goals. You take that out, this team's a really good team, and if they continue to have this kind of season, this kind of performance from Giacomakis, from obviously Thiago Almada, I think that this team is looking at a top 4 spot in the Eastern Conference if Thiago stays around and actually sticks in the MLS for the time being. I don't think that that's likely. Just because of how well he's played. Jordan, did you see the clip by chance of the goal that they scored? Giacomakis' goals. It's a header, and Thiago Almada gets a ball from a corner, or he's either got it from a corner or he's short corner for some reason. He's almost near the end line, and he's kind of dribbling towards the box, and nobody's watching it. Like, they're just kind of like, oh no, he's coming towards us. It's like he puts the ball perfectly on Giacomakis' head, who's a big striker. He puts it right on top of his head. And then it was hilarious because the clip shows the defenders going or the keeper going, "What are you doing? Why are you not stopping the best player in this league, arguably this year? Like, you're just going to let him do what he wants." And it was literally just Almada just outside the box going, all right, who can I find to score? So not great defending by NYCFC, but I think that this Atlanta team, they look legit.
Especially when you think that at that point, NYC players than Atlanta. So the fact that you're letting Almada just go, I mean, we can double them up, right? Like, we have more players. Right. We have one more player than them.
Right.
Yeah. Not a good look. But yeah, so Atlanta sits 3rd, NYCFC sits 7th. That's kind of where we're currently at with those 2 teams. Miami faced Dallas, so we'll talk about them later when we transition to the West. DC lose another home game. They lose to Columbus. Didn't they just play DC in Columbus?
Did they? I don't think so. That wouldn't have been that early, would it?
I feel like this just happened. I don't know. Maybe I'm just wrong.
No, I don't think they played. No, that doesn't sound right. I don't think MLS ever does that, where you're playing.
No, so DC played Chicago last. And before that, they played New England. Okay.
They played Orlando at DC. I do know that.
And then they played NYCFC. Okay, so this might be the first matchup between them. It is. Okay, I am just wrong. Okay. I think I'm looking at every single week here. Yeah. Oh no, DC and Columbus played March 4th.
Did they really?
So it's a month ago. It was week 2 of the season. But
so you're not crazy. I'm crazy.
I'm not crazy. I somehow thought that a month ago was last week, but that's not good. But yeah, I mean, so like DC lost to the Crew then too, I believe. So not off to a good start DC. They were pretty even match, like possession and shots and all that stuff. Shots were 14-13 in favor of DC. Shots on goal were 5-5, but possession favored the Crew, and the Crew win it with a penalty kick in the 39th minute. Zelarayan converts, and then Ramirez converting in the 47th minute. So really, right before halftime and right after halftime, does enough to bury DC. DC has at times looked okay, where they're like, passing the eye test at times, and then they just give up too many goals. They've given up 12. They scored 7. I feel like that's an improvement from last year at this point. But DC sits 13th, and the Crew, who started off a season with a 4-1 defeat at Philadelphia, are now above Philadelphia in the table, and they sit all the way in 4th. Wilfried Nancy, we kind of talked about it a little bit ago, so we don't have to spend too much time on it, just kind of getting this team turned around here pretty quickly.
Yeah, and this is all without Cucho, who's been out for a couple of weeks with injury. So, I mean, you're looking at this Columbus Crew team, Jordan. I was looking at their scoring, and I'm actually really impressed with just how well they spread it across the team. I mean, you're talking about a team that they seem to be scoring at will. 16 goals this season, 4 coming from Zelarayan. You've got 3 from Aiden Morris and Christian Ramirez. You got 1 from Matan, 1 from Quentin, 1 from Yaboa, 1 from Russell Rowe, 1 from Madronda, 1 from Arfston. So, I mean, this team, it doesn't matter who's out there. They just score goals. And I think that was something that they needed to do, just because I think in the offseason that was a big emphasis, and especially getting a guy like Christian Ramirez to kind of maybe play a double striker. That'd be kind of fun. Have think about this. You look at the 2 Ohio teams, and you would think, out of the 2 that Cincinnati would be scoring the most. They've only got 9 goals. The Columbus Crew, Jordan, have 17 goals. They did get 6 against Atlanta, like I'd said, but 17 goals, and that's without one of the top strikers in this league that we saw in a very small sample size last season, who, I mean, pretty much just kind of kept that team hanging in there last season. So I'm really excited to kind of see how Cucho comes back, and how Wilfried Nancy, who can kind of implement him into the match, because he played 3 matches, didn't score a goal. Could you imagine adding Cucho to this? I think that it's a team that I think definitely is going to make some noise, Jordan. This might be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the Eastern Conference when it's all said and done, because I think we had questions about their defense, which they haven't quite shored up as well as they need to, because I think those goals will kind of catch up. But I know we were a little higher on them than I think some other people might have been. But I thought, they where we put them was respectable, just because of how good Wilfried Nancy is. But man, this is an exciting team to watch. And finally, we're rid of Caleb Porter football. So that's made this team a lot more fun to watch.
2 MLS Cup time winner, though, Caleb Porter. But yeah, so we'll see how it works out for Columbus. All right, let's transition to the Eastern teams that played the West, and then we'll talk the West. Miami. Well, actually, hold on real quick before we do that. Nashville and Toronto drew 0-0. Sounds about right. Nashville has trouble scoring, but they don't give up any goals. Toronto kind of have trouble scoring as well.
Similar.
Yeah.
Same thing, except they can't.
All right, moving on. We had Red Bulls play San Jose. We had Miami play Dallas, and we had RSL face Charlotte. And I think that in Chicago facing Minnesota. So let's start with Minnesota-Dallas. Dallas won that one off a Jesus Ferreira goal in the 27th minute. Miami had 68.5% possession. They had 12 shots, but Dallas had 16. And out of those 16, Dallas had 8 on goal. Miami was kind of like the team everybody thought would take the jump this year. This was a home game for them. Logan, they said with 6 points. They've been struggling. They beat the Union. I felt like that was week 2 or 3, and since then I think they haven't done anything.
Yeah, they've lost 5 in a row.
Yikes!
So, yeah, not good.
No wins or draws on the road either. Now this one wasn't on the road, but they're 0-3-0 on the road.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a matter of like they're not going to get any scoring. It looks like. I mean, Stefanelli hasn't really kind of come into the league and done much, but that's kind of normal for a guy that's come over. He's played in 7 matches. He's only had 1 goal. Joseph Martinez has not broken the goal seal yet in Miami, and that's kind of an issue. He's only got 6 matches played and 6 starts, and their biggest piece, I think, and Gregory is out for the season with that knee injury. So. Yeah, this is it's getting bad, like really bad in Miami, and I think the biggest thing with them is that they've been handcuffed. I think we all forget they've just been handcuffed by these DP, regulations and rules and all this kind of stuff. They can't have 4 DPs on the roster, and that really bums them out. But it does seem like Miami, Jordan, that this team is just circling the drain. And once again, we're back here talking about how bad of a club they are. And they've now, I think, Jordan, I think Cincinnati's kind of gotten in the clear. I mean, with all those wooden spoons that Cincinnati was trying to collect in their trophy case, they've completely blown Miami out of the water now. Now Miami's the laughing stock of the league. And I think that they're going to continue to be just that, because I think
you think so? You think they're the laughing stock?
I think so. Yeah, I would say so. For a team that's supposed to perform like they were, like they're going to miss the playoffs at this rate. Like,
I mean, they're only 2 points behind.
Yeah, but look at the rest of the teams that are in front of them. Like it's a matter of like who's going to switch spots. I think with like you've got who are they behind? They're behind the Union, right? They're behind the Red Bull. They're not going to catch them. Maybe Toronto is a team they could possibly catch, but that only puts them in 10th place, 11th place. Sorry. So they're definitely, I'll give them that, Jordan. They're definitely better than DC United. They're definitely better than Charlotte and Montreal. But I think with their expectations, I would call them the laughing stock, yes, because of how bad they've just been with how much money they've got.
If Messi doesn't come in the summer and they miss the playoffs, Phil Neville leaves, right?
Leaves or gets fired?
Either or.
Fired. Could you imagine Beckham firing him though? I can't see it. In what world?
I can at some point. I mean, if it's gonna start detrimenting his investment, I feel like you're gonna have to pull the plug. Sorry, Logan. If you were up my investment, I'd probably have to cut you loose.
Yikes, man.
But if I gave you plenty of time, I gave you 5 DPs. I mean, what else am I supposed to
do? Jordan, you didn't give me Leo Messi, and that's what I've been asking for since
well, can't help that he wants to go back to Barcelona.
Right. Well, I mean, you could take down Barcelona. Just go after
him. Okay, let's talk Chicago, Minnesota. Minnesota was undefeated on the road. I think they were undefeated in the whole league too, by the way, at that point. But they were like perfect on the road. And they go into Chicago, Soldier Field, not known as a fortress for for Chicago. I mean, Chicago had not even won a game yet this season. So MLS flips the coin. It lands heads. And guess what? Chicago gets their first win of the season at home. Kai Kamara scores a brace. He's now only, by the way, 3 goals shy of Landon Donovan, who sits second in the MLS scoring record, I guess. 38-year-old Kai Kamara. He's played for 10 teams. He scored for all 10 of them at this point. He is killing it this season. I think that's his 3rd or 4th goal for them since joining. But they beat Minnesota 2-1. Chicago, everything coming up great for them recently.
Jordan, you know what happened the last time that we had an MLS record breaker as far as goals scored? And I hope Anthony Hudson doesn't leave Kai Kamara off the U.S. men's national team roster when we head into the world. Not that he can't play. I
think he has to, actually. I think he technically has to.
I don't think Kai Kamara can play for the U.S., so everybody calm down.
No,
I think he's already capped wherever the hell he's from. So I don't know where Kai Kamara's from. But yeah, no, I what a feat, though, Jordan. Did you see the goal, the second one that he scored? It was unbelievable. He cuts in front of the defender and he's kind of like gone airborne. Well, he has gone airborne, and he's about as flat as a board like this, and heads one in the misdirection where the keeper's not, and it goes in the back of the net. I'm like, that's just such a Kai Kamara kind of goal. Like, it's amazing that we have players like this, Jordan, in the league that so many people don't get to see perform at some of the highest levels. I mean, I think with Wando, it would have been really cool to see Wando play his career with somebody that was really good the whole time that he was there, just absolutely just tearing up the league, but he's never gotten that chance. Landon Donovan, we actually got to see do all of that because he was with the Galaxy. So it's amazing that this journeyman, that Kai Kamara, who's pretty much been, I think, on every MLS team at this point, has finally just gotten so close to Landon Donovan that he's going to finally break his record, barring any kind of weird injury. So it's pretty cool. Who would have thought?
He plays for Sierra Leone, by the way. But
okay, yeah,
but yeah, and you know what? In 2021, I was shouting this from the rooftops, right? Because he was playing in Finland, and I was like, "How is Kai Kamara a free agent? Nobody picks him up." He goes to Finland. He plays 14 games, scores 5 goals, comes back over for Montreal, scores 9 goals for them. He's now got 3 in 5 games for Chicago. My point being, somebody in 2021 should have grabbed him.
Oh, yeah. Especially,
I was pushing for the Union to grab him, but he didn't.
Right. Well, that's what I was thinking about, too. I think the Heat have been, besides just blanking on who the hell I'm trying to talk about. That's right. Jazzy Zardes. So, like, why go after him, right? I mean, he's sitting out there for the Fire to go grab him, and easily could have been on one of these competitive teams. And I think he fits Austin's system just as well as anybody that would be available to Austin. So I just don't understand. Like, I don't want to say.
Well, it was a trade. Chicago did have to trade for him.
That's true,
but yeah, you would think that anybody in MLS could have afforded this trade.
Yeah.
And it's working out for them. 3 goals in 5 matches. That's pretty good. So Chicago up there. We were talking about them before the season, before they made that trade. Like, they need a goal scorer. They went out and got one. So far, it's worked out. We'll see how it continues. Red Bulls get a late equalizer at home against San Jose as Espinoza scored in the 80th minute and Barlow scores in the 90th plus 17th minute. Logan, do you want to break down what happened in this match for us?
Yeah, so a high boot comes in from Dante Vanzier, who's the Red Bull DP that has not really seen the field much, nor has he kind of lived up to that price tag that he's brought over with him. But he high boots. I want to believe it's Christian Espinoza. I can't remember exactly. I couldn't find the clip quick enough to remember the name of the person. I think it was definitely Christian, though.
And there was no red card? This doesn't show a red card.
Okay. Yeah, no red card. So what happened was it was actually deemed a yellow card, which was – I mean, it is. This thing is as close to a red card, I think, as possible. The boot literally hits him like right in the throat. Like it was so high. I'm like, this is. There were some really weird kind of red cards given out this weekend, and this one I thought deserved more of a red card than any of the other ones. But anyway, what happens is Jeremy Abobasi comes in, and obviously he's defending his guys. And Jeremy's always been like that. He's been very defensive of his teammates. He's a great teammate. People love him. And he comes over and he gets in the face of Vanzier. They get into it. Nealis comes over, tries to break it up. Then it kind of turns into like one of those. It's not really a brawl at that point, but it's kind of like what you'd see in a brawl where like pushing and shoving breaks out. And then all of a sudden there's this little group on the side that gets loose. And then they're pushing and shoving each other. And then it just kind of goes throughout the field. It was chaos. I think it was like a 16-minute delay or something like that, 17-minute delay of the game just because of all the things. So what has to happen is the MLS wrap-up crew did a really nice job. And I think it was Krista, or I forget the girl's name that jumped on, but she did a fantastic job on MLS wrap-up.
Christina Uncle.
Thank you. There you go. And she jumped on and explained the situation in which the refs have to take in this kind of situation. And it was really interesting because I've never really heard this perspective. So what has to happen is the player has to then isolate. So you have to isolate the person that was basically said to have said these awful things. A racial slur was thrown out towards Jeremy Abobasi. And I guess the accusee was Van Zier. So Van Zier ends up on the other end of this. He calls Abobasi a racial slur. He gets pulled aside because when you are the ones that's the alleged person that did it, you are the one that has to be pulled aside. And then they have to ask you, did you say it? And she said sometimes the players will be straight up like, yeah, I said it, because they're in the heat of the moment and they are just frustrated and they want to say something because they're kind of in that mode. But then she said a lot of times too, the guys will go, no, I didn't say that. What are you talking about? I never would have said that. And of course, the players obviously had heard it because everybody was pushing and shoving and it was getting pretty intense. You could read their lips that they were not happy. They did not look happy. The body language didn't say it was, a good thing, obviously. But then what has to happen, the refs ask the people who accused, and they have to say, yes, this is when it happened. This is what he said. This is why it happened. And then they move over to the coaches. They explain to the coaches, this is what the players said. This is what happened. This is what the person that's accusing of them said. And they go through like this whole situation. They have to explain it to everybody. They go and they listen to the assistant ref up above VAR and stuff. They actually have to talk to them about it, like what was heard, if there's anything that can be picked up in the VAR mics. And then, Jordan, after that, when the investigation happens after the match or during the match, as they begin the investigation, because the investigation starts right away, is that they will start to pull. I didn't know this part. This is really fascinating. They pull sound bites from people. So like social media people, boom mics, camera mics, ball mic, like everything, like all the mics on the refs, all the mics on players that they're wired, like they pull all of it to investigate, which I guess common sense would say they do that, but I didn't know they go to that length to really figure out what's happened. And so that's the next process, is they're going to go through and listen to all this film and decide if a racial slur was used to Abobasi. And it does sound like it was, but they made a good point, and I kind of pitched the question back to you. If a racial slur is said, because we deal with this all the time with fans saying it to players, but it's really kind of rare in this league so far because it's younger. And it does happen. You've seen it happen, but like, this one was pretty egregious, and it's kind of stems of this fight. What would you think as far as like the commissioner, if you're coming out and you're trying to completely nip this in the bud? What do you think that the appropriate suspension would be for somebody that would use this against a player or another opposing player?
Well, I think there's precedence here, by the way. If I can find the answer of the question I'm looking at. Okay. Legit got in trouble for using a homophobic slur
Oh, yeah, that's right.
in 2021. I think he also got in trouble for it a few years ago, where that was another player. 2 games is what they got. So it depends. Do you want to say racial slur is worse than homophobic slur? Some people might in each community take offense to whatever you deem at that point. It's going to be tough. Precedent says 2 games. I would think you would probably want more like 5 and a fine. But I don't know. I'm kind of thinking just it's going to probably be 2 games if it actually was said.
That's a really good point. I didn't even think of that. Because you're then giving one a higher level or ranking of offensiveness, and that would, I think that would upset me too, if I was either part of either of those communities. So that's it. It's sad. Like I think a regular fan or somebody on my perspective would just be like, give them a 10-game ban, and that sets the precedent. But because they haven't done that in the past, they're kind of saying like one's more important than the other. So that's a really good point. I didn't think of that.
All right, let's wrap up and go to RSL Charlotte. RSL is turn it on this game, right? They fall behind by Swiderski in the 27th minute, but then in the 56th is Ruiz, and the 59th is Julio, and then the 62th is Savarino, and that gets RSL 3 goals in the span of 6 minutes to win a game at home. I wish I would have been able to go to that game, traveling to RSL then. But That's what they get to do. So Charlotte still sit 14th in the East. That's all of the Eastern teams that played the West. So now we can just transition fully to the Western Conference. Seattle sit top with 16 points in first. St. Louis, even after 2 consecutive losses, sit second with 15 points. LAFC sit third with 14 points, but they have a game in hand. Dallas sit fourth now with 11 points. Minnesota sit fifth with 11. They have a game in hand. San Jose sit sixth with 7 games played, 11 points. Houston sit seventh with 9 points. They've played 6 games, so they have a game in hand. Vancouver sit eighth with 9 points. Austin in ninth with 7 points. They've only played 6 games, though. They have a -4 goal differential, Austin. Then in 10th, you have Salt Lake with 6 points. Colorado with 6 points in 11th place. Portland in 12th with 5 points. LA Galaxy in 13th with 3 points. And SKC in 14th with 3 points. LAFC just pretty much did exactly what they did in the Western Conference against Austin. They beat them 3-0 in LA. Buoanga scoring all 3 of those goals in the 40th, the 58th, and the 68th minute. 26 shots to 9 for Austin. What's wrong with Austin, Logan? I think a lot of people on the Austin side have kind of speculated the new formation that Wolf is using or the new system he's using hasn't. They're kind of upset that they think Josh Wolf doesn't take enough blame when he's doing his press conferences. I don't know how much of that really bothers me if I'm a fan, honestly. But they're already Wolf out again, pretty much. So what are your thoughts here on, Austin finishing second in the West last year, dropping all the way out of a playoff spot right now, right? Oh no, the last playoff spot, sorry. And just really, really struggling compared to last year.
I mean, part of it's their defense, giving up 10 goals. So that's been kind of a thing they can't really get over. And with some major injuries to start the season, I think that was something that obviously was going to be a concern. But Jordan, they've only scored 6 goals. That's really concerning. I think that's where Austin fans they'll give some to the defense, right? They'll allow the defense to kind of be average because of the new pieces coming in with some of the injuries that they've sustained coming into the season because it was such a huge loss. I think that you look at this attacking team, and they were one of the best last year in the league, if not the best. You look at Sebastian Giroux, he only has 1 goal and 1 assist. Hasn't really kind of found that form that he was in last year. And I think people suspected that he would kind of come down off that really high season off of last year. But I didn't think it would be this drastic. It has been pretty noticeable. And I think it kind of speaks to maybe Josh Wolf not being able to get the most out of his players. And again, I didn't think they looked very good in the Western Conference Finals up against LAFC last season, and this was kind of an embarrassment, I would say, on the Austin side. I mean, LAFC just took it to town, and they really look like the dominant side on this one, and they look like they're going to be a lot better than Austin is this season. I still go back to the CCL game to Violet to lose a game to semi-professionals, and kudos to them though. Like kudos to that team for coming out and competing, but to lose to a team that, I mean, they're playing guys that hadn't played for like 12 months. I mean, it's simply amazing that you could do that as a professional soccer club. And I think that's, kind of where it starts. And you kind of look at some of the head scratchers that they've had. I thought that the performance against St. Louis to open the season was just kind of a show of how undisciplined this team can be at times. And I think that that's kind of ultimately what's caught up to Austin this season.
Yeah, it's very odd, in the sense like I thought they would kind of fall back a bit, but they've really fell back a bit more than I would have thought. It just look, this isn't looking pretty good for you.
I mean, there's a big turnaround coming. I'm interested because Sebastian Derussy is really going to have
For
a
the
good season.
audio people, I shared a screenshot of Logan picking Austin for the supporter shield, but don't look at my supporter shield pick either. Okay. Let's move on. Houston demolish LA. LA out there playing like AFC Richmond after watching some surveillance videos. They get 2 red cards. Caceres in the 63rd, Costa the 90th plus 7th. Herrera got one in the 90th plus 5th for Houston, but Houston just demolished them 3-0 at home. Not looking good for LA Galaxy this season. Chicharito's back, but the rest of the team sucks.
Putting it lightly. Did you see the red card? Douglas Costa basically looked like he didn't. Andrew Weeby said this, and it does. It looks like he doesn't want to play in El Trafico. He just takes, I think it was Hector. He just takes him and just like throws him down, and then like walks off. Like, I'm done. I don't want to play. Like it was the most blatant red card. And then Caceres,
I need a week off.
Yeah, but Caceres' red card is so stupid and idiotic. He runs to the VAR assistant as the VAR assistant's looking in the little video thing.
Oh, yeah,
and he puts his hand on him. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Like, that's an automatic red card. You can't do that. Like, you cannot put your hands on an official. You're not supposed to. Like, some officials actually let them, which I think is where the rule kind of gets muddy. But you're really not supposed to touch an official, and it's supposed to be an immediate red. So. I remember that because of Sergio Aguero, like when he touched the lady's line ref's like shoulder, and they were like, "Oh, throw him out." And like, yeah, I mean, it's the rule. Like, you're supposed to be removed from a game if you make contact with an official. At least the officials aren't elbowing our players in this league, so that's kind of exciting. Could you imagine it being a Caceres touching him, boom, just absolutely drills him?
Yeah. Well, at least, yeah. Like you said, at least it's not like that. Could you imagine if that did happen in our league? Because people would not live that down, by the way. They would not let us live that down. They'd be like, what a Mickey Mouse league this is for the officials elbowing. Right. Anyway.
Happened to one of those
SKC SKC face off against the Rapids. They decide, let's have it out to see which one of us is worse. And the Rapids won that contest. They are not the worst out of these two teams. They win with Rubio scoring in the 68th minute. This was in Kansas City, by the way. And I think, I saw fans for Kansas City who were very upset about this. And obviously, this is the second straight year where we feel like they're not living up to potential. Is it time for Ramis to go?
I'm not going to say yes.
I'm going to say yes. How about that? I will say yes.
I don't think they will.
I've watched him for a long time. This is not what I would have expected of the team under Vermees. I think he's lost him. I think that they just need a complete rebuild. I think they need to start over from scratch because this team is not the same team that they were even 2 years ago when they were like near the top of the West. They've just can't score worth a lick. What? They scored 2 goals all season. They have no wins yet. Out of 7 games, they have no wins yet. Same thing with Galaxy. The Galaxy's only played 6. No wins. And Logan, those are actually the last 2 teams, by the way, that have not had a win all season.
That's true. Uninspired soccer, Jordan. You know where he could land? U.S. men's national team.
Oh, I would hope not.
That's where I'm concerned. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what kind of candidates are out there for the U.S. men's national team, but I think the longer this goes on, I guess because they don't have the director of football or what the hell they call him, they can't.
Yeah, that's what they're going to hire first. So we got to wait.
So, yeah, well, I hope we can wait as long.
See, I don't think like for
Peter needs to get hired.
I don't think he's done in the sense of like he can't do it
ever
again. But I think it's just at this point with SKC, I think it's done. I think they need to move on. I think he can move on. Like, imagine him maybe like jumping on a team like Miami,
Minnesota.
or turning somebody around. And it'd be a fresh message for those players compared to the same old message he's been giving. Like, that's the thing about staying somewhere too long. Sometimes it just stops working. And it seems to me that it's just stopped working. I think he'll have the full season. They're only 4 points from a playoff spot. That's how much of a disaster having 9 teams get in it. But at this point, it's like I can't see them turning it around. 4 points? 4 points for this team? Logan, would take them another 7 games to just get another 3 points, because that's how many they have out of 7, right? And at that point, everyone else is already way past them at that point. Another 7 games. If this takes them another 7 games to get to 6 points, I mean, you're in real trouble. You'd be at 14 games played with 6 points.
You would be on record. You would be close to.
You would still be bottom.
Records.
You would still be bottom. Now the good thing is they don't give up as many goals. They've only given up 8 compared to like Montreal, Charlotte, and DC giving up 16, 14, and 12. But it's a problem. It's a real problem for them. Vancouver continue their winning ways recently. They're in a playoff spot. They beat Portland 1-0. Brian White scoring in the 74th minute. There you go. Portland is having some problems too. I think it might be almost time for Savarese to head on out.
Jordan, this could be a year where we see Peter Vermees, Greg Vanney, and Gio Savarese fired in the same year. That would be nuts. Like,
so I can literally see Vanney keeping his job more than those two. And the reason I think so too, now they have a new executive who's supposed to be taking over. I think if he liked Vanney, then he's like, all right, now I can actually do my job and bring in the players we need to bring in. He's the guy that brought in a lot of LAFC players. But that's going to depend. If LA go a long other time, it might be time to move on from Vanney. Look, I'm just calling for everyone's job this episode.
Yeah.
Sorry, if you're one of those
coaches.
I'm sorry if you're one of those coaches at the bottom of the table telling get out, but it's dismal. SKC should not be this bad. LA Galaxy should not be this bad. LA should never have gotten this bad after. Look, when LAFC came into the league, that should have kicked their ass into gear to make sure they didn't become irrelevant. And instead, they decided to become irrelevant because they can't say, you know what? Maybe we should just fire Chris Klein. Maybe we should give the fans what they actually want. No. So now you have attendance, you have stuff, and you suck. So, I mean, that's the frustrating. If this would be like if the Yankees decided when the Mets came in town, like, that's fine. Let them take the spotlight. You know?
Back it up. We're leaving. But we're not actually going anywhere.
Yeah. We're just going to sign, awful players for the rest of our time. See this last one done. Seattle beat St. Louis. We referenced it earlier, but guess what? No Jordan Morris goal. Raul Ruidiaz scores. Nervinsky scored an own goal for Seattle. And Atencio scoring in the 65th minute gives Seattle a 3-0 victory, all in the second half after I closed my eyes at halftime. And then I woke up hours later like, whoa, I totally fell asleep. All right, let's preview the rest of the games. We got some Champions League games coming that we have to talk about.
It's time for the Match of the Week preview.
Match of the Week previews where we tell you what games to tune into. LAFC hosts Vancouver in the first round. That's tomorrow, April 11th. LAFC already have a 3-0 victory on aggregate so far over Vancouver. So congrats, LAFC. You're about to move on to the next round. Philadelphia Union lead Atlas 1-0 in aggregate, but they're going down to play in Mexico at 10 p.m. on Wednesday. Then Saturday, we have Charlotte hosting Colorado at 7:30. That is free on your Apple TV. Columbus Crew hosting New England Revolution. That sounds like a really fun matchup, by the way. That's free on Apple TV. Montreal hosting DC for a battle of the bottom of the table. 7:30 on Apple TV. That one not free. They want you to pay premium for that matchup.
I was gonna say that after that first one, you read off of like they gave that one away for free because nobody's gonna watch it. But then this one, I'm like, oh, okay.
They're like, you gotta pay $79.99 to watch the Montreal host DC United in the Losada Bowl. New York Red Bulls host Houston at 7:30 as Houston continue their weird season of let's play all the Eastern Conference teams on the road.
I don't understand. I don't get it.
Bizarre season. NYCFC host Nashville at 7:30 at Citi Field. They'll be playing at a different baseball stadium this week. Toronto host Atlanta at 7:30. Austin hosts Vancouver at 8:30. Chicago hosts Philadelphia. We just played them. In Philly. But yes, Chicago hosts Philadelphia at 8:30. Dallas host RSL at 8:30. Minnesota hosting Orlando at 8:30, and that one's free. St. Louis
Adrian
hosting
Heath
Cincinnati.
free, but no Losada free.
Yeah, no, they want the premium for Losada. St. Louis hosting Cincinnati at 8:30. Portland, Seattle at 10:30. That's a good one. Rivalry anyway. San Jose versus KC at 10:30. That one's free. Again, they're like, give me some bottom of the barrel ones there. And then El Trafico is free. That's one that they're like, we'll give you that. As LAFC will win that one 3-0.
Yeah.
4:30 on Sunday. We're back this week. It's on Fox. It's also on Apple TV for free. Logan, I ask you, what is your game of the week?
Gosh, there's some awful matches this week. But this one's kind of torn. I'm not going to pick El Trafico because the Galaxy are awful. So I'm going to go with, I'm going to go with St. Louis and Cincinnati because I feel like I can leave the other one for you because I think I know which one you want. But yeah, I'm excited about St. Louis, Cincinnati. This is the heartland.
That's the one I
wanted.
wanted.
Baby.
That's the one I wanted. Yes.
Oh well, you can have it. Go ahead. I can pick the other one.
No. You already picked it. Go ahead.
Okay, fine. Okay. No, but Cincinnati, I think, kind of trying to prove that they're that cream of the crop, right? And I think that they've only scored 9 goals. I think that would be my biggest concern for them. It's just the fact that they haven't really been firing on all cylinders as of yet. I would hope that they don't go through the whole season kind of this team that right now they're in first because everybody else has not played as well, except maybe the Rebs in Atlanta. So I feel like with Cincinnati, we're still looking to kind of see if we can find an offense here for them. St. Louis has been giving up a lot of goals lately. So I think that this is kind of a perfect matchup for them to kind of find their scoring ways with Cincinnati. But it is at City Park, as they would say, because it's all capitalized. But no, I'm excited about that. I want to see if St. Louis can stay kind of a mix the table up there at the top because I think LAFC could pass them this weekend with a win over the Galaxy. So I'm excited to see what St. Louis does. Can Klaus get back on the score sheet? Can he start to kind of get back and rattle some goals in against Cincinnati's defense that has been one of the top defenses in this league? So pretty excited about that match.
All right, you're going to have to pay a premium for mine. I have to go with Montreal.
Damn.
I'm going to go Columbus, New England. I think that
that's the one I was going to take too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, the easy answers are Portland, Seattle, LA. But look, if you don't want to watch those or you're eager to look at top of the table teams, Columbus, New England is going to give you that, right? Columbus has 4 wins. New England has 5. This is in Columbus. Columbus over time owns this series, by the way. They have 39 wins. 39. There's 20 draws, and New England has only won this matchup 28 times. So Columbus absolutely dominates this series. I think they'll dominate this game as well. They actually average the same amount of shots on the season so far, but New England actually edges shots on goal this season. So we'll see how that plays out. But I'm really expecting Columbus being at home. I almost feel like they're going to just, 2-1, 3-1, something like that. Either way, should be a good time. That's at 7:30. Logan's pick was at 8:30, so you can flip between them. And then Sunday, you have LA versus LA in the El Trafico. All the people complaining about all the games being on Saturday, you now have a game on Sunday. Man, if only time soon.
You went like mute all of a sudden. What'd you say?
I said hopefully one time our teams can be picked for match of the week sometime.
Yeah, but that would require.
They've just been so bad.
Hey, my team didn't lose last weekend, Jordan. Okay, yours did.
It's a positive.
Yeah, 29 teams in the league. They don't have to play.
Oh yeah, they were the team that didn't play.
They were the team that didn't play last week.
I was trying to think about like who didn't play and who we didn't talk about today. There you go. It was Orlando.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to give us a follow at Stateside Show on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, we'll be doing our Ted Lasso recap. Probably recording that tomorrow, right? Is that what we said? So we'll sadly see each other again tomorrow, and we'll be talking Ted Lasso, the latest episode before the next one drops, 9 p.m. tomorrow. So we'll pretty much get done, and then we'll probably go watch the next episode at that point.
Right.
But it's been good. I like them releasing it at 9 p.m. It's been good. I've been kind of being able to watch them Tuesday instead of Wednesday when I also have a bunch of other stuff that I'm watching drop. So it's good. So we'll be talking that. Then this upcoming Sunday is the next Closed Pyramid episode. As that is shifted to every other week. But yeah. So I hope everyone had a great holiday. We'll catch you all next time when we talk about El Trafico, St. Louis, Cincinnati, and Columbus, New England. And yes, we'll even probably spend 15 minutes on Montreal and DC. Catch you next time.